Four divisions, four hosts, all battling it out for the Holy GrAHL of the American Hockey League, the Calder Cup. This is the Holy GrAHL podcast with Andrew Rinaldi, Deana Weinheimer, Jeremy Paul, Michael Liu, and Zack Power.
Well, hello once again, and welcome to episode 15 of Field Pass Hockey's AHL podcast, The Holy GrAHL. And as always, here at The Holy GrAHL, we are all about the American Hockey League and the yearly race to their Holy GrAHL, the Calder Cup. But as always, before we get too far into this, we are just going to go around the screen here and introduce ourselves to anyone who may be new. So we're going to go back to the old standby of let's just go in alphabetical order.
Works for me, folks. So in case this is your first time tuning in, my name is Andrew Rinaldi. I cover the Chicago Wolves and Grand Rapids Griffins here at Field Pass Hockey. This is my second year, and, I've been loving every minute of it.
And hello, I am Deana Weinheimer. I am the Cleveland Monsters correspondent and one of the AHL co-editors here at Field Pass Hockey, solidly in my third season, and I'm coming to you live from cold, snowy Central Ohio.
Well, coming to you from cold, snowy Grand Rapids, Michigan, my name is Jeremy Paul, and I cover the Rochester Americans for Field Pass Hockey in my first season, covering guys like Jack Quinn. You might have heard about him, I don't know. But also stopping by here every Thursday to talk hockey with these wonderful folks, so I can't wait for this one.
And I'm Zack Power. Tweet me your rival, and I will jinx them for you.
Oh, we're starting off strong this week.
Jeremy, are you okay there?
Yeah, I need to learn that I'm not allowed to take a drink of literally anything before Zack talks. Like, I just know that he's usually going to get me pretty good, so that's on me.
Another plug for those of you who may be listening on the Field Pass Hockey app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else. This is why you need to check out the YouTube channel too, because sometimes you get some nice golden moments here. So one of these days I'll have to put them all together into a nice compilation, maybe to celebrate our 6-month birthday or something. I don't know. I'll see. But we're just going to go ahead and get right into the show because, boy, do we have a lot to cover today. So here at the Holy GrAHL, we are not afraid to talk about some of the more serious issues surrounding hockey and hockey culture. Sure, we obviously love to have a lot of fun, but there is something that we definitely need to discuss here on today's show. We're just going to go ahead and get right into it. But in the span of just a few days, we saw 2 incidents in professional hockey in which minority players have been on the receiving end of racial gestures. I mean, first, it hit in the American Hockey League, which actually resulted in a 30-game suspension for San Jose Barracuda forward Christoph Hrabik. I apologize for not getting the name, but anyway, he directed a racial gesture toward Boko Imama of the Tucson Roadrunners. And unfortunately, he is no stranger to being on the receiving end of that. Then over the weekend, Jacob Panetta was first indefinitely suspended and then released by the Jacksonville Icemen for a gesture directed towards South Carolina Stingrays defenseman Jordan Subban.
It's so... As much of it as it pains me to say it, I'm not really shocked, unfortunately, to see that these things are still exist in this game. It's no matter how much we it breaks our heart, especially for these guys coming up from youth hockey and junior hockey and every corner of the hockey world, they've heard it, and it's been on display for years and years and years. And, we want to talk about how great the culture of the sport is. And, I'm warmed up by how the hockey community received both of these players, by both Boko and Jordan, and how they've united and how they've talked. We can talk a big game all we want on social media, but where are we making progress? I see a lot of vocal support, but it just feels like as soon as the news cycle rolls through and we kind of, it loses the headlines, these fights to bring these players into just the community, just to making these guys feel like human beings while they're playing the sport while they love, that's too much to ask for. I'm trying to keep this PG and all that, so I'm not going to go too far into it, but I don't even know what to say anymore. I mean, I can come up here as, in case you guys haven't noticed, like real pasty white dude coming up here saying racism is bad and all that, and I don't want to make light of anything going on. It's just kind of my natural way of coping with it is with humor, but where does it end? That's all I can ask myself at this point.
And it's one of those things, right, where it makes it feel just like the recency of the two incidences and them happening so proximal to one another. It almost feels like it's happening more often, but I think what we're actually seeing is maybe more so of a willingness to hold those accountable who do participate in bigoted behavior on the ice, right? And I think that is a thing that is important in this conversation as well. I think we've had incidences in the past, right, of racist behavior, biased behavior on and off the ice. And a lot of times we see a lot of inaction from any league, right? Whether that's hockey, football, you name it. And so for the AHL and the ECHL respectively to both act on this and react accordingly, it is welcomed. It is too late. It's happening too late, but it's nice to see that they're getting involved. But again, that's reactive, right? And that is not proactive. And how do we then do what's necessary, right, to create cultures and behaviors prior to that weeds out that kind of behavior before it gets to the point of a racist incident on the ice? And that's where I think the AHL, the ECHL, how the NHL need to put the money where the mouth is and be proactive in these situations as opposed to reactive.
I said it last time too. It makes it that much harder to be a fan of the game in a sense, right? I mean, you spend your life cheering up and growing up and cheering on these teams, right? In some cases, these teams have been here 5-6 years, right? And then when you get incidents like these, makes it that much harder to kind of cheer on your team, knowing that there's this sort of culture that's going on within hockey, within the game today, within the league, right? And the whole sport. It makes it that much harder to kind of cheer on that hometown team, the team you bought season tickets for, and all this time there was racism going on in the game that you didn't even know about, right? And now that we're able to hold these people accountable, yes, but it's too late. It happened. It shouldn't have happened. It happens. It shouldn't happen. So it makes it that much more tougher to be a fan of the game, of the sport, of sports with these incidents.
And the thing about it too, right, is like for it to spill over onto the ice, that means it's happening in other places. And that means that it's not being stopped in other places. Sometimes I'm grateful for the work that we get to do and being in the locker room and being able to have conversations with players after games and, before games, what have you. But sometimes it creeps in the back of my mind, like, what are they saying after I leave this space? Like, what's happening in these rooms? Because, like, let's be honest, right? Like, some pretty gnarly stuff, like some pretty bad stuff. If we just, take
And what happens when you see them outside the locker rooms, outside the hallways? You bump into them on the street, sort of thing. I know the ECHL is famous for going out to bars after games and whatnot, right? What happens when you bump into them there? Right.
I mean, honestly, I wouldn't say irony, but I guess juxtaposition is not lost on me that, last week the Boston Bruins retired Willie O'Ree's number. Then there was the Carnegie Initiative, who was named in honor of legendary hockey player and social justice pioneer Herb Carnegie, who had their summit in Boston, where they were talking about racism and in hockey and just all sorts of different topics around culture and how to fix it and how different groups and people are trying to do that. And then, that all happens last week. And then by the time the weekend hits, we have this. But I will say one thing that I did that kind of brought a little bit of a light to it, and Jeremy kind of hit on it a little bit, is that at least actions being taken, because there's been too many times where it's been, oh, here's 5 games, here's a game, but these are actions taken by the league and the teams that are truly impactful. And I don't know, where, I'm just a white female, that helps run a podcast. What can I do? But it's important that we have these kind of discussions because it's more than just a deeply rooted issue with society than it is hockey, because if their first instinct is to resort to those kind of gestures or something like that, then that speaks more towards society. I am happy to see the amount of support that came out for both of those players. I hope that some strides can be taken to just make it better.
And I think that there's something to be said too about, I believe, the next game in the ECHL, because it was a back-to-back. There was kind of an olive branch that was kind of extended from the other team there that next game in warm-up, saying, this is not something that we stand for. This is not what we believe in. This is, I don't want to say isolated, but this is not what this team values at all. So it's good to see that at least there's that sort of caringness inside the ECHL and I guess the AHL as well.
I did notice that the captain of the Icemen went up to Jordan during warm-ups and kind of, patted him on the back and kind of knelt down next to him on the ice and talked to him for a few minutes, which I thought was, he didn't have to do that, but that speaks very highly to his character, I think.
And I think we all know that there are guys like that in these locker rooms, right? Like, I think we all know that there are guys who don't necessarily align themselves with racist, bigoted ideologies. And so I think it's at this point, it's like, how do you create a culture where it allows for those guys to feel like they can say something? Because I think a lot of times in the culture, it's a matter of kind of like demonizing or outcasting the guys that speak out in moments like that. And so I would even probably go so far as to say that there are probably more guys in those locker rooms that don't feel that way than do. And so how do we create environments where those guys feel comfortable to say something when they see something?
I think it's clear that there's a long way to go to working on this culture before we talk a lot about progress, and to be fair, there has been a lot of progress made with this sport, and you got to understand that by its very nature, hockey is very exclusive. It's a sport that, a lot of kids and families that don't have the means can't provide their children to play it. It's a very white dominated sport. There's just it's just the nature of it and its roots, and we've gotten better at it. And like I said, the community coming together and supporting these players has been very heartwarming. But I mean, to see something like this happen back to back, you'd think after the thing happened with the Barracuda that maybe get a clue, don't repeat the same thing. Again, I've said my piece on it.
All right. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and move on because we do have an action-packed show today, and I want to make sure that we cover all of the great positive news that happened in the league this past week. So if it's okay with everybody else, we're going to go ahead and move on into our weekend review. All right. So, but before we jump fully into it, I do want to flash back a little bit to our last episode. So jump in the time machine. Boop, 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 boop. So Jeremy, you had predicted a minimum of 20 goals in the back-to-back Rochester-Cleveland series. But you were close, but not quite there. There were actually 15.
Yeah, that second game was more on par with what I expected on the weekend. And so, yeah, it was just a lot of goals. And yeah, there was absolutely no shortage of opportunities for the Monsters in that one.
So yeah, 4-1, Rochester win Friday, 7-3, Cleveland win on Saturday. So I just wanted to kind of tie that bow, nice, get the nice little curls going on it. Cool. All right. So player of the week, we're turning to the Milwaukee Admirals. Forward Rocco Grimaldi has been selected as the AHL player of the week for the week ending January 23rd. He recorded 5 goals, and 5 assists for a total of 10 points in 3 Milwaukee victories last week. Goal and assist in the third period and a 3-1 win over Iowa, a goal and 2 assists in the second period before setting up an OT winner in a 4-3 victory over the Texas Stars. And on Saturday, he gets a second AHL hat trick to kind of highlight a 4-point night as they knocked off the Griffins 5-2.
You know, this is a guy who has actually played a lot in the NHL, and every time I see him come back down, I'm kind of baffled. I'm like, what are you doing here? I mean, this guy's got not just the skill, he's got the IQ, he's got the skating to make it in the show. I don't know if it's a size thing because he's an undersized player, but good for Milwaukee. I mean, they'll take any help they can get right now, and it's quite a treat to watch Rocco play hockey, even when it's against the Griffins. Destroying my beat. It is what it is. But here's another guy coming out of Metro Detroit and making a big name for himself. He just say congratulations to him, and at some point, I don't know how Nashville is going to keep this guy down. Just keep yo-yoing him in between the big club and Milwaukee. You gotta make a call at some point with a guy like this.
All right. Well, we already mentioned 1 hat trick, but have you ever heard of a single pro team having 2 players get a hat trick in the exact same game?
Not on my end.
Okay. Anybody else possibly?
Not in goals.
Okay. What else would they get a hat trick in?
I don't know if I want to ask. I don't know if I have any.
Gordie Howe. The goal to fight the assist.
Gordie Howe.
Gordie Howe. Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
come
I thought you were
on.
going to say like in mattresses or something. I don't know. Why ever would I have thought something like that, Zach?
In lighting fingers on fire hat trick.
1, 2, 3.
Well,
Probably not far off from the truth.
yeah. Well, it happened with the Cleveland Monsters and the I almost said Grand Rapids Griffins. Oh my goodness. Now, wouldn't that be an accomplishment? Jeez. But yeah, 2 hat tricks, one by Brendan Gauntz and one by Trey Fix-Wolanski in the victory 7-3 against Rochester on Saturday. And we actually do have a video of all of them. So let's just kind of sit back and kind of watch this happen.
8 seconds left on the power play. Bonstadt hits Castles, left circle out high, Gons fires, he scores! Williams got a piece of that. And now another turnover, Fix-Wolansky wires and he scores! Forward, Trey Fix-Wolansky for Cleveland. He has the most recent Monsters goal, fires this pass in front, off a leg, and he scored again! Scott Harrington, back return, Simpson right circle, cuts to the front of the net, poke, they score! Brendan Gaunce, body, never made it through to Graves, taken away, Fix-Wolansky fires for the empty net, he scores! Hat-trick goal for Trey Fix-Wolansky! Puck into the Rochester zone. Monsters fire from the far corner. Brendan Gaunce scores.
This one was just when it rains, it pours. Like that was like ridiculous. I could not believe it when I saw it because it's just one of those, right? Like it's just like when everything's going in, it's going in.
I've said it before how much I love the enigma that is the Rochester Americans. Just anytime they're going up, like, there's never going to be a 2-1 hard-fought defensive battle. It's either going to be, a 5-1 dub with Jack Quinn and JJ Peterka lighting the boards up, or it's going to be, some kind of 8-5 monstrosity.
Yeah, and those games aren't even because they're playing good defense or getting good goaltending. It's just because they have the puck the whole game. It's not even like the best defense is a good offense, and that's what they do sometimes. And then other times they don't.
Or when they play Charlotte.
Oof. Okay, yeah. Yep.
That's an oof.
Big old 10-0 right there.
If you want to talk enigmas, Cleveland's an enigma. So they get that huge victory, right? And then they turn around and go to Wilkes-Barre Scranton, and it was 5-1 in favor of the Penguins.
I guess a team that can barely score.
Welcome to my life as the Cleveland Monsters correspondent. But also, speaking of hat tricks, we also want to give a shout out to Hershey's Axel Janssen Fjallby and Ontario's, we haven't heard this name in a while, Martin Ferk, who also tallied hat tricks on Saturday. So in total, if you count Rocco Grimaldi's too, that's 5 hat tricks in the AHL on the same night. Pretty impressive. The stars
and actually Janssen Fjallby's first goal set a record for the Teddy toss, and that was quite the scene, actually, to see in all the what was it? What was the final count? Like 56K teddy bears being thrown onto the ice. It was enough to create a literal sea of stuffed animals for players to jump in and swim in. It was pretty awesome. And then, he just added 2 more after that because, hey, it's Hershey. They got a flair for the dramatics,
Hershey never disappoints with that teddy bear toss. Let's just get that straight. That every year they never disappoint.
Yeah, it was. I was trying to find a quick video of the players basically doing belly flops into the pile of bears, but I can't find it. But yeah, it's
the credits.
Hey, there we go. Yeah, but it was like 53, 54. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
52. Oh.
Yep.
Yeah, 52,341, which
So I shot a little high, but I was being optimistic.
That's like every fan bringing like 5 teddy bears.
Correct. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, I saw
Because it's like a 10,000 seater, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, one of the guys that that covers the bears that I know brought like trash bags upon trash bags into this place. It's just ludicrous.
I just want to know whose job it is to hit the clicker and count every bear that's coming through.
I know they probably don't get paid enough, but more so what I'm wondering is what's it like to sit in the rows that end up being the ones that get the most pelted by all of the stuffed animals that don't make it to the ice? Do you know what I mean? How many? like how many like little hard plastic eyeballs are you getting hit with in the back of your head before you get fed up? Like, I'm just.
Or like the people who try to throw it over the net kind of thing, like they're down
Right.
the end rows and like it just falls off the net and hits their head, which I understand.
That
There's
looks like
nothing
the
to
most
do.
comfortable thing.
Yep. So I have the video going on the YouTube stream. The only thing I can say is, first of all, look at all the little tiny teddy bears that are stuck at the top. Look at all the ones out up along the glass, and then look at this poor man fighting with this huge stuffed shark. It's like every time I watch it, there is something new to look at.
It's literally left shark. It's literally left shark.
It's literally left shark.
And
But thank you.
The employee on the board's just already trying to stuff bears in, and it looks like he's trying to take water out of a sinking boat with a bucket. Like just trying to stuff a bear in while they're just showering down over his head. Like you might as well just wait for the end at that point and just get a giant shovel, and I think that'll be a little easier to take care of all the bears.
Would have been kind of cool too if the goaltender hid inside the net like Patrick Waugh did with all the rats kind of thing and just watched them pelt down over your head.
How long does it take to clean off the ice? Like how long I feel like there has to be info about that somewhere. Like how long does it take to get 52,341 bears off of an ice surface?
Depends if you're counting as you go.
And here's another video. I mean, is this not life goals?
Correct.
He literally just disappears.
All right. Well, many thanks to the Hershey Bears for sharing those videos on Twitter. All credit goes to them. But let's go ahead and move on. We're going to jump over to the Western Conference here real quick. The Bakersfield Condors are on a little bit of a run right now. I mean, thanks to Ryan Holt from the Condors for this stat. But during a 10-game run where they went 7-1-2-0, they averaged 3.9 goals a night. And in that time, they only allowed an average of 2 goals per game. Not too bad, guys. That's
Can I
one
say
way
that Bakersfield has a penalty minute record that's like 200 minutes below the first? Like they had the best, like they've taken the least amount of penalties out of all the AHL teams. And it's a good 50 between them and like second last. But between first and last is 200 penalty minutes.
I think what amazes me more is that Bakersfield has been on this run, and since last week, they dropped a spot in the standings because the Eagles have been on such a heater lately that they jumped over them. And I mean, I got a soft spot in my heart for the aesthetic of the Colorado Eagles jerseys. So, you know, I've been kind of rah-rahing them up lately. And, hey, they're right there, number three in the Pacific. So, sorry, Bakersfield.
All right, and we're going to jump back to Hershey real quick. I should have probably organized this a little bit better, but kudos to Phoenix Copley, Hershey Bears goaltender, who actually had the league's only shutout last week, which came against the Hartford Wolfpack on Saturday. I mean, when we said stars aligned on Saturday, boy, did they. And then we have one more stat for you here. And this one is courtesy of AHL reporter extraordinaire Patrick Williams. But I don't know who sat down and figured this out, but it must have took a while. Since December 26, there have been approximately 1,350 AHL player transactions. And that's as of sometime over this past weekend. That's an average of 43 transactions per team. So if you feel like your team's lineup has been completely turned on its head, that's why.
Looking at you, Grand Rapids. They're pumping those numbers up definitely with Kyle Criscolo going between Taxi Squad and the Griffins about 5 times in the last month alone. So that's, again, I want to know who's in charge. If he's actually like doing his homework and counting these up one by one like a Hershey Bears bear counter, then that's even more impressive work on Pat's part, because that just stresses me out just looking at that number.
All right. And of course, here at the Holy Grail, we also love celebrating firsts. And here is a historic first for you. So congratulations to Yushiro Hirano of the Abbotsford Canucks, who has become the first Japanese-born player to score a goal in the American Hockey League. Now, this comes courtesy of a goal against the San Diego Gulls this past Saturday. Again, I feel like that was like literally the only day in AHL hockey, because we're just talking so much about Saturday. But he was also the first Asian-born player to actually tally a point in the American Hockey League back in 2019 with the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. And also, just for good measure, he got a second goal on Sunday. So congratulations, Yushiro. Just, it's a nice way how we started the podcast as to where we are now. It's nice to see that.
Without a doubt. And he is good. Like, when I covered a couple of games down in Cincinnati, he was playing third line minutes with the ECHL Cyclones, and he was just so good. And I was like, how is this guy not getting more minutes? How is this guy not getting a chance? And, when I saw that he was loaned to Abbotsford, I was like, here we go. Like, this kid's not going back to Cincinnati anytime soon. Like, he's really good. And it's a lot of fun to watch.
And we have a special guest here on this episode. So I would like to welcome, first time to the podcast, Tyler Weber. He is our Texas Stars correspondent. He is in his first season here at Field Pass Hockey. And Tyler, thank you so much for taking some time out, and welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Tyler, first of all, I got to address the elephant in the room. Texas not really having the greatest start to the year with, if I'm correct, 7 wins in regulation. That's 7. Now, 7. I was on here a couple weeks ago after the Stars had their most recent series with the Wolves, and I was trying to pump their tires up a bit, saying, I see that the Stars aren't the record's not great, but they're a better team than the record states. Well, since then, the Stars decided to throw a puck into their own net, and they've just really kind of just tied themselves to the basement in the Central there. So, without being quite so mean to the roster, what's really been kind of the catalyst there? Because I really still don't believe that, like, on paper this team should be where it's at.
No, and I think you're exactly right. That series with the Wolves, I believe it's a 3-game set. I mean, that kind of opened the eyes. This is a team that was kind of split in every home series they were doing. This was in the middle, this is the beginning of what was supposed to be an 11-game homestand. But they dropped all 3 games to the Wolves that weekend, 2 of which I believe they lost by 4 or more goals, and then the other one they managed to get to overtime. But, I mean, that was kind of, the eye-opener that this team is maybe not performing to the standard that it needs to be. Since then, the own goal into the empty net, that kind of stings. But, I mean, there's been more losses like that. Most recently, the last home game against Manitoba, they battled back. Anthony Lewis, top 6 left winger, he managed to bury a hat trick. But, he scores 3rd goal in the final minute. Then with less than a second to go, Manitoba steals the game and they win. It's kind of those bad breaks that just really not falling their way. And, we're kind of looking at this roster, top to bottom. This is a team that's got a lot of young talent, a lot of veterans in there that, they should be performing at least better than 7 regulation wins to this point in the season. What are we, 30-plus games in the season? We're not looking at a team that's going to make the playoffs. They don't really have a shot at the Cup right now. What's the ceiling for this team is my question.
Well, we were looking at stats, and Texas currently doesn't have what is considered a qualified goaltender. So that means that they really haven't had 11 AHL starts this season. So what's been going on in the goaltending picture, and what's been your opinion on their goaltending?
So before the season, this was kind of a weird topic. They had so many goaltenders in the Stars organization. From last year, they, Ben Bishop, he was hurt. He was out all season. Then they had Jay Gottinger, the kid. He's 22, 23 years old now. He was supposed to be up there. He did very well last year in the NHL. Now, that was a good tandem, but in the anticipation of Ben Bishop coming back, I'm not really sure why, but Dallas GM Jim Nill decided to sign Braden Holtby, which to this point in the season looks like a very good move, but it's kind of just made a crowded crease for this whole Stars organization. So, beginning of the season, they had Jake Ottinger down here. The first weekend they were playing the Rockford Ice Hogs. They managed to split the 2 series, but Jake Ottinger was fantastic. This is a guy that's going to be an NHL goaltender for a long time, and I really anticipate him being here in Texas for most of the season. Now, unfortunately, it didn't really work out. Hudobin's play at the NHL level kind of, staggered. They weren't too happy with the product on the ice, so they decided to send him back down. Well, in the interim between them sending Hudobin down and having Ottinger called up, they had Colton Point, who has had kind of a tough season after last year's, solid play. That kind of fell apart on him. He's been sent down to the Idaho Steelheads of the ECHL. And then Adam Scheel, our backup here in Texas, he's been playing great in his role. He hasn't played 11 he's not a qualified goaltender at this point, but he's been playing well in the starts that he's gotten. But the thing is that it's just there's too much variability with who's going to be in net from night to night. Hudobin's played the last 4 home games for them, and since then he's been called back up. He's with Dallas right now. I believe he's on the taxi squad. So it's Scheel and Point right now. Bishop came back against the Chicago Wolves, and that was mixed results. That was a really rough night for him. And then he ended up retiring the next day. That's just kind of one of those unfortunate breaks. It's not something you can really foresee, before the season starts. But, going forward, we're probably looking at Adam Scheel being the starter down here and then having Colton Point probably back up. On the other hand, if Hudobin does end up getting sent back down off the taxi squad, he will get most of the starts whenever he does come back.
Yeah, I was going to ask who you thought would kind of get the net, because I know the NHL has talked about getting rid of the taxi squad kind of right around or after the All-Star break. Mm-hmm.
So if they do end up getting rid of the taxi squad, Hudobin will either be traded, which he could probably fetch a mid-round pick at this point, 3rd or 4th rounder. And, there's a lot of teams in the NHL that could really use that backup goaltender, especially someone who's got the experience of someone who actually did go to the Stanley Cup Finals and, almost took home the cup. That 2020 run for the Dallas Stars really put some things in perspective with this team, that they can really go to that next level. They can get that far. They just got to be able to get there first. And I think that's been kind of the issue with them over the past few years, is whether or not they make the playoffs or not. But when they have, they've at least won a round. So with Texas, they're kind of just at the mercy of the Dallas GM, the Dallas front office. It's going to depend on what they want to do with Hudobin. If they trade him, then he's gone. It'll be Scheel and Point. If they keep him, they'll send him back down. Point will probably go back to the ECHL and be with the Idaho Steelheads again. And then Scheel will be the backup for him, probably split some starts with him. That's kind of where I'm thinking this is going to go.
I think you might be underselling Hudobin's worth a little bit there. You realize Ken Holland is still a GM in the NHL, so I think you could be looking at least a 2nd-round pick for a goalie like that. But jokes aside, so before the season began, I really highlighted Ty Dellandrea as a guy who was really gonna put the team on his back a bit. 1st-round pedigree, had his cup of coffee with Dallas last year, and I was really expecting him to kind of take the next step and really just kind of become a more rounded, complete player to really lead this team up in the standings, kind of like another 2018 1st-rounder that I'm a little more familiar with in Dominic Bach, who, he didn't really have any time with Carolina, but he looked really good as the season went on last year for Chicago, and this year he's really struggled just to even get on the ice. And I get it's a really talented lineup in Chicago, but whenever you do see him playing, it's kind of a mental thing. And I'm wondering for Dellandrea, do you see kind of a similar parallel where, this is a guy who's got all the talent in the world and should be lighting the score sheet up, and for one reason or another, the numbers themselves just aren't there. So, what's your assessment of his game, basically?
So I think with Ty Dellandrea, I mean, he's a 2018 first-round pick. He's 21, 22 years old. This is a guy we're talking about. He's supposed to be that top 6 forward in the Dallas organization going forward. Maybe he's just taking a little more time to develop right now. But what I really like to see from him this year is that he's got that sandpaper to his game. That's kind of what he's been known for, aside from scoring goals and getting some points on there. He's really been someone who's agitating. He gets in the crease after the whistle. He's got people face washing him all the time. That's his style of play, kind of like a mini Brad Marchand, maybe not to the, level of point scoring, but this is someone who, ideally at this point, if he's really reached his ceiling, which I don't think he has, okay, he's still young. He's a good middle six option. He's someone who can center a line. My take is they probably should have had him as the third or fourth line center on Dallas this year. Instead, they brought in Luke Glendening. Great face-off man, great defensive forward. That's good. But if you're wanting to add depth scoring, you're looking at Dellandrea, you want him to develop a little bit more. They've done the same thing with Thomas Harley on the back end. He's been up and down with Dallas quite a bit this year. He hasn't gotten full playing time when he's in the NHL, but he's getting a few shifts here and there. But it's really hard for these young prospects to get, their feet wet in the NHL when they're only playing 8-10 minutes a night. They're not getting full exposure, not getting a lot of ice time. They're not getting that opportunity to learn. And being sent back and forth between Dallas and Austin so often, it's just it may be taking more of a toll on their development than what it was doing before the pandemic. Let's say 3-4 years ago, prospects were probably developing a little bit better whenever they had this more of a set schedule. They're like, okay, we're going to bring you up for a few weeks. You're going to play in the 9 games while we have you, under your ELC. But then we're going to send you back down. You'll get more playing time in the AHL. That's kind of what they're looking at. But, I mean, Delandrea's already burned a whole year off his ELC. He's going to be 22 this year. This is someone who is probably looking at next year as kind of the make or break year, whether or not he's going to really throw himself into a top 6 role with Dallas, which I think the opportunity is there with an aging core in Radulov, Sagan, and Ben. This team is really kind of starving for young prospects. They've got Miro Haskin on the back end, so they're good there. But Thomas Harley is going to be a great second pairing defenseman, maybe even be another offensive, power play quarterback on the second unit. That would be my ideal place for him in the Dallas organization. He's only 20 years old, though, so he's very young. Then you look at, let's say, the emergence for me with Dallas has been Jason Robertson and Rope Hintz. Those guys are still very young. And Jason Robertson, I believe, is 22 years old, 21, 22. That's ideally where they wanted Dellandrea to be. I believe they were taking the same draft. Robertson was in the second round. I believe Dellandrea was a first rounder. So, the development of Robertson has been great, but Delandrea's kind of lagging a bit behind here. Maybe, these years in the AHL really aren't doing too much for him. And maybe it's just not really fortuitous for him to be playing with some people who may not be at the skill level of some of these NHL players that would be on a third line with Dallas, or maybe even a fourth line with Dallas.
So let's talk about something that's in our mind has been a little bit more positive this season. So Curtis McKenzie, 500 career games, leading by example on the ice. Talk about, for just a few minutes, his impact on this team.
Oh, man, he's been great. He's someone they brought in. They wanted a veteran to come in and kind of guide these young kids along. They gave him the captain's patch. He's been leading by example on the ice every game that he plays. He's physical. He's got more than probably a dozen fights just in the home games alone. He's standing up for his teammates where he can. He's putting the puck in the net. He's driving plays. I mean, this guy's doing it all. This is exactly what they wanted him to do whenever they brought him in this offseason. And, every time that we're out there and we see him on the ice here in Austin, he's doing what he's supposed to do. He's leading by example. Now, he's been kind of the trendsetter in that department, but maybe not getting as much traction with some of the other guys in the locker room. That might be a little bit of an issue. So, this guy, he's got the whole locker room behind him. You can just tell by how they play on the ice. He's probably the perfect captain for this team, but things just haven't been working out on the ice. He's been one of the leaders in the top 6 as well. He's someone who's going to be, if he wants to stick around, there's a place for him. He's going to stay in the AHL for a long time. Heck, he might even crack an NHL roster. He's got the talent to play in the NHL. He's got the sandpaper to his game that some of these GMs do want, and I mean, you can't say enough great things about the captain of Texas Stars.
So I guess the big question here is Texas a case where they're just in a tough division, or is this more of a case of a team that just can't quite get it right?
I think it's a mix of both. So things haven't gone their way, clearly. From day one, things have not been going their way. You look at the top of the division, you have the Chicago Wolves, which they're a wagon for the AHL. Okay. You have leaders in Andrew Podorowski, Josh Levo, Dominic Bach will pick up his game as the season goes along. That's the team that everyone's striving to be in this division. Then you also look at like Manitoba. They came in here and they took every game from us when they were here. And they have the forwards, they have the defense, and they have the goaltending to make a long run in the Calder Cup playoffs. Now, below that, you're looking at teams like Milwaukee, let's say Rockford, and a couple others in there. So those teams are quite a bit ahead in the standings at this point in time, but it's not an insurmountable gap, but it's going to be very tough for the Stars to really kind of catch up this late in the season. If you're looking at whether or not it's just the division, I don't think it's all that. I think it's more of maybe this team has its style of play that's really not kind of, mixing with how they're playing on the ice. I think that this team's very heavy. It's very physical. And a lot of the other teams in our division are a lot faster, a lot younger, and have a lot more skill, or at least top-end skill. So when I look at like our defensive core, they brought in Alex Petrovic this year, big defensive guy. He's been great. Our power play quarterback for most of the season has been Ben Gleason. He's been scoring a lot of goals, scoring a lot of assists. He's doing a great job. The size of this roster is too big to move at the speed of a Chicago Wolves team. So they have to play a different style, more of like a trapping style. And I think that maybe a change of play style might benefit them a little bit more than trying to play through the neutral zone and go speedy, try to beat them out on the rush. I don't think that's our style of play. I think if you're looking more like a chip and chase, dump and chase, try and go get the puck and then, wear them down in the offensive zone, I think that's more of the style that would probably fit better with this team. But then again, in some sequences I've seen when they played Rockford and when they played Chicago, these teams were leaving one man behind the defense and getting out on lone rushes and scoring on the goalie. I mean, you have no chance of stopping that whenever he's completely past both your guys. You're leaving your goalie on an island. That's not going to work. So they did make some adjustments with it and ended up playing 3 high most of that series. But I think that, you look at how we were talking about Curtis McKenzie, the guy's fighting all the time. He's checking, he's scoring goals. I think that style of play would probably fit a lot better with this team as it's currently constructed. And especially with all the call-ups and the send downs that have happened with the Dallas organization, with the taxi squad and all that, I think that this would probably be a good time to go ahead and just try it out. I mean, you have 7 regulation wins. You're, at least 10 points back in the standings of any wild card spot at this point, probably 15 to 20. You don't really have, a bad option here. Any option is an opportunity to try and collect more points in the standings, reduce that gap, and maybe even crack one of the wild card spots and get in there, take a chance at the Calder Cup. That's an option, and I think that maybe they should look at exploring that. But I think that the speedy style is just not really suited for this roster from top to bottom.
All right. Is there anything else that you think that our listeners should know about this Texas Stars team?
Just know this team's a lot of fun to watch. And while they may not be winning every night, they're not winning every other night. This is a team that's physical. They're fast. They can score goals. I mean, they do everything that you want a hockey player to do. But it's just a matter of whether or not they can win. That's to be seen. We still got a lot of time left in the season. Hopefully they can take a run at it.
All right. And Tyler, thank you so much for taking your time out of your schedule and coming to join us here on the Holy GrAHL podcast. You're welcome back anytime. It was wonderful to have you here.
Well, thank you guys for having me. I really love talking hockey, so this is an awesome opportunity.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and move on to our oof of the week. And we had a lot of nominations here in our little group chat. We kind of considered talking about the sheer number of transactions. But Andrew, I'm going to let you explain. It feels like we kind of always default to you, but you find them, so I let you explain them. Take it away.
I'm just the oof master, I guess. So the end of the second period of the Marlies Griffins game on Monday night, it got a little hairy. First off, with about 30 seconds left, there's an ugly turnover on the Griffins' part that saw Semyon Dargachintsev. I think I'm pronouncing that right, Zach. Okay, sweet. So he buried one to put the Marlies up ahead. You could tell that the Griffins were frustrated because Taro Hiroshi, a guy who is not a physical player, threw a really kind of dangerous blindside almost check on a Marlies player, which then kind of resulted in a scrum at the end in front of the Marlies net. Saw a lot of equipment go flying. There was some blood in the crease, and it kind of had a little bit of harking back to old time hockey there for a minute. And when the refs decided to kind of come together and dole out the penalties, one of those assessed was an unsportsmanlike conduct call to Dennis Jan. The issue with that was that Dennis Jan was not on the game. He was on the bench, and apparently he got 2 minutes for being involved in a scrum. I'm not sure. I know Coach Simon didn't really understand what was going on there either, but at the end of the day, the Griffins did get a power play out of it, and in typical Griffins fashion, they didn't score. So, the universe kind of finds a way to round itself out. But that was a bit of an oof.
Is anybody reminded of the John Mulaney skit where he's talking about being a kid and getting in trouble? He goes, I was sitting on the bench. It's like giving that energy in just such a spectacular way. And I will reference John Mulaney whenever I can. So
Perfect reference. Yeah, absolute oof. It's not a good look. But all right, we're gonna go ahead and move right on into our swipe left or swipe right segment. This is our hot takes portion of the podcast. Rules are simple. Swipe right if the opinion is good. Swipe left if the opinion, if you don't agree with it, or we get one super swipe up per month. Andrew, take it away.
Sure. So in honor, now this is if, Nashville goes against my advice and decides to keep Rocco Grimaldi down with the Admirals, and I think that they've been getting a little healthier and just been kind of looking like a better squad. I think that the Milwaukee Admirals will be a playoff team, and they will win a playoff round. And if anything at all, it is because of that man up there that was talking about their cement shoes all season. Well, they're just going to go right ahead and now rise to the top. Maybe not to the top, but some of it's due to the playoff formatting. You give me a round with Milwaukee against Iowa, I'd take Milwaukee. You give me Rockford, I think that'd be a tighter contest, but playoff hockey, anything can happen. So, yeah, why not?
Okay. So usually I don't like to kind of predict who's going where because it's never well, because I know full well that my predictions are going to go south. The problem is I like this, the soundness of them making the playoffs is there. I believe it because they've shaken the rust from the beginning of the season to now. It's like I said in a previous podcast, it's like they forgot how to play hockey for a little while. But now they seemingly remember. What do you know? But my thing is I think that the division is just too stacked with too many black horses who could go the distance and actually do very well in the playoffs. I think I'll swipe on it and I'll see if I can talk you out of it and see if you're at least half sane. So I think that's where I'm going to go on this.
I don't know. My profile comes with all the red flags, baby.
Oh no!
who's missing though, right? Like who that currently sits in the top 5 do you have falling out? I mean, Iowa, is that like it has to be almost by default, right? And I guess perhaps not. I mean, they've had a few guys like make their way up to Minnesota, and you have another guy who's making his way to Beijing, and it's all possible, right? Like it's possible, but I mean, and after that, right? I mean, you get through it, and you have to play. What, you're the 5th seed, so you end up playing Manitoba in the first round. I mean, I want to talk about it a little bit later, but like that's the best team in the league that we don't talk about, like that we never talk about. And so I can't see it, Andrew. I gotta swipe left, and I hate to do it because I feel like I swipe right a lot, but I'm sure you have a really great personality.
I'm sure I do too, but I think that
I'll let you know.
I think because with the way that the bracket is set up, that 4 and 5 play each other, and then the winner of that has the distinct honor to go and get slaughtered by the Wolves. I could be wrong by that.
Gotcha.
That kind of influenced my take.
That makes it a little bit more palatable, I will be honest, especially if they're playing Grand Rapids, because that just feels like the kind of matchup that the Griffins would lose. But I think it's still left.
So so for the Central, how it's going to match up is the first round will be 4 and 5. But
I mean,
I think with mine, it's been a while since we've kind of used this move, but I think I want to like just exit out of the app without swiping and hope this comes back around in like, I don't know, mid-March.
Dang.
It never does.
Because I'm
never
not
does.
quite ready. I'm not quite ready for that commitment yet. But I also don't want to say that it's not going to happen, because it very well could. I'm just not ready. It's not you, it's me.
That's fair. I'm just saying that profile might not be around in mid-March. You're going to miss out on your chance.
It's not you, it's me. I'm sorry.
Happens to the best of us.
All right, Jeremy.
Oh my gosh, it's me. I'm like waiting for you to, like, I don't know. My brain is still like alphabetical order. Can't get outside of that mindset.
I'm saving mine for the end.
I'm like the world's most large creature of habit. Anywho, so as of right now, I mean, we talk about scoring a lot. Well, we'll talk about scoring actually in just a few moments. But currently, TJ Tynan leads the league in terms of active players for points per game. So, of course, Andrew Podorowski, friend of the podcast, you all know him. He's gonna lead the league in scoring. Like that's really not my question. But will he lead the league in points per game? Keeping in mind, like, let's keep it to a reasonable amount of games played. Like let's not give some guy who's played a game and scored 2 points any consideration for this. But in terms of lineup regulars, I don't think he's going to lead the league in points per game.
So I was looking at this, the fact that Ontario is going to be finishing out their season with 68 games played, while Chicago is going to be at 76. So Chicago is going to have an extra 10 games on them. So I like where you're going with that, because by that logic, it's almost like TJ just kind of ran out of games in his schedule, while Andrew kind of gets allowed to beat up on the Texas Stars of the world and everything. And this is gonna be it's not you, it's me moment, because I'm just way more exposed to Potts. Maybe I'm just feeling, empathetic towards him because he had to watch that Bills game this weekend. So I'm gonna have to swipe left on it, just because I gotta support the captain. I gotta do it. He needs me right now.
I mean,
yeah, that was terrible. That Bills game was like the most egregious.
I don't want to talk about it just in case he's listening.
Okay, fair.
We're sorry, Andrew.
I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm such a TJ Tynan fan ever since he was with the Columbus organization. He's always been one of my favorites. I'm so yes, I my mind's like not working as to how this was worded, but I'm swiping in the direction that would mean that TJ Tynan has the points per game lead at the end.
So you're swiping right. Come on over to the dark side, girl.
Cool. All right. Let's go. I'll be on my way up.
There's some kind of connection between these two. Wait, no. Yeah. There's some kind of connection.
It's the Ohio. It's the Ohio in them.
Yeah. I don't know. But you know me. I don't think I'm ready for a long-term relationship right now. And I say that because I do think that Eric Stahl will come back to the AHL one of these days. And he might have a couple of he might meet that minimum threshold that we're kind of talking about here, that he might actually do something. Who knows? This could be the big revival of Eric Stahl playing hockey again. So I'm going to swipe left. I'm sorry.
Andrew's just going to keep upping that minimum game number just to keep him out of it.
No doubt. But what I'm hearing from Zach is there just wasn't a spark.
I'm sorry. But, I talk about not being in a long-term relationship, and then I turn around and swipe on this other idea, this other theory, that after carefully studying all the available profiles and realizing why mine may not be so well, I'll go to Andrew, who gave me some great advice and said, hey, I don't think that Iowa's going to make it. And I say that because Iowa they'll go for such a long stretch where they just won't have some of their star players, possibly Eric Stahl for God knows how long, with COVID protocols and coming back and isolating and whatever that may mean, as well as all the players that are coming up and down or who have been up and down because of COVID. And we talked about the point separation between Bakersfield and that top team. Well, that top team with over 200 penalty minutes more is Iowa, who, they have over 200 penalty minutes more and are at top of the league for AHL penalty minutes. So on that note, I don't think that Iowa's going to make it. I think they're going to run out of gas.
This is a tough one because I don't think that Iowa's going to make the playoffs, but I don't necessarily think that it's because of that they're overly physical or anything, or that they're just the absolute goon squad. I just they've lost when you lose. I mean, they have Marco Rossi still, but Matt Boldy's back up in Minnesota. Kalen Addison is up in Minnesota, but they don't feel like playing him for some odd reason. Eric Stahl, after the Olympics, we'll have to see what happens there. Other than that, sorry to all the Iowa and Minnesota listeners out there. They're just not very good. They're I don't mean to be disparaging on the team, but they kind of are the goon squad. And when your captain is Cody McLeod, that says, kind of where your team's going at and what the direction they're going at each and every game. And I respect that. And, every time you see the Wild on the schedule, you got to circle it because it's fireworks every time. I'll swipe right because I don't think they're making the playoffs, but I'm swiping left because it's not because of their penalty minute totals.
Do you all remember, I think it might have been the first episode, when my take was that there was going to be a team that averaged at least 10 penalty minutes per game. And I think that nobody swiped right on it. I think that maybe nobody said that they were on board. They averaged 15 penalty minutes per game. Like, it's not even close.
No.
They have 526. And it's just absolutely ludicrous. Andrew, I thought you were going to swipe left on that. And I'm like, didn't you just say that Milwaukee was going to make the playoffs? But I digress. I don't know that it's because they play physical hockey, but I mean, I think Eric Stahl, very realistically, like, somebody's going to do that thing where they're like, do you know what we're missing in our Stanley Cup playoff run? We're missing a guy who's going to kind of almost produce for us, but he's a leader in the room, and we're going to pay him league minimum, and he's going to come in, and then he's going to get booted in the first round, and the team's going to give up a third round. It's tough.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just don't think Iowa's going to do it, but I don't think that Milwaukee's going to do it either, and Texas sure as hell is not going to do it. Can they just take the top four?
Someone's got to be that in that 5 spot. You got to take.
They should just take 4.
One. So just for comparison's sake, because I really got to enjoy Iowa last season with my first season with the Wolves, because it was just a gong show every time they played each other. So in 35 games, Iowa's got 526 penalty minutes. Last year in 34 games, they had 644. So they're actually 120 minutes behind their pace from last year. So, Iowa, you got to step it up.
So this is my chance to kind of redeem me closing out of the app, because this is a very similar profile. And this one is filled out maybe just a little bit better. Just a little bit. I do like the whole wingman thing going on right here between Zach and Andrew. But what I'm looking at is how close are these games. So I'm looking at goals for versus goals against. So with Iowa, it's 96 and 101. So, you got 5. But if you look at Rockford, it's 7 more goals against than goals for. You look at Milwaukee, it's 15. Texas is even more than that. It's like 20 something. I'm going to do the math in my head right now. So I will swipe right on this because the games are closer, which means they don't need as much work to try to stay in that number 5 spot to get into the playoffs.
I'm swiping left, by the way. I've decided that I'm swiping left.
Okay.
Sorry for the delay.
I kind of wanted to backpedal back to the points per game situation. So do you know who has the most of anyone who's played more than 5 games?
Oh, Andrew Podorowski. Or not Andrew Podorowski. My gosh. Scott Perunovich. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, he's got it.
Yeah, 100%.
The defenseman has the most points per game. And just because we haven't said his name in a while, I just wanted to bring it up because we haven't talked about him enough yet this year.
Another name we haven't mentioned in a while is Payton Krebs. So Payton Krebs, Scott Perunovich. There we go. Name drop. All right, guys. So I'm going to make this super quick. I just need to know. I'm just going to share a picture, and you just need to tell me swipe right or swipe left. These are the new jerseys for the upcoming Coachella Firebirds.
Oh, I'm 100% swiping right on that.
All right.
I'm left.
Is this just for the home jersey?
This is just for the dark jerseys. I will show the light jerseys here coming up here in a second. So just the jersey on the screen right now.
Yeah, I'll swipe right here.
Okay. And now we have their light jerseys.
This is where I swipe left.
I swipe right on this one, but I do feel like I'm looking at a Florida Panthers affiliate.
With those colors, I can see it.
So for me, like, I am such a big lover of the Kraken away jerseys, like Kraken light jerseys, that like I wanted this to do that for me, but it looks half baked. I don't know. It looks like it's missing something, and I don't know what it's missing. Maybe it's like a darker bottom to the jersey, like maybe a darker stripe on the bottom, would do it for me, but it just feels half baked.
Yeah, I kind of like it. I'll swipe right. Looks like any other away jersey to me.
I'm going to be like totally opposite of Zach. I love the dark jerseys. I would definitely swipe right on those. The darks, not so much. So, all right. Well, since we're running a little bit short on time, we're going to try to run through these scoring races here real quick. But looking at the scoring races for the top skaters in terms of points, Andrew, I have to ask, what happened to Andrew Podorowski? He only had 1 point last week. I mean, was the stress from that Bills game just a bit too much? I mean, if so, we can't exactly blame him, but he might need a wellness check.
I don't know what Jeremy's talking about, because I've been saying the Moose have been like one of the better teams in not just in the division, but in the league. They've just had the misfortune of being stuck behind Chicago. Well, they proved how good they were this weekend in sweeping the series against the Wolves and keeping that high potent offense down to, like you said, just 1 point for Podorowski. So, yeah, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He had that Bills game looming over him. Maybe he had a sixth sense and he just knew what was going to happen. I mean, some NFL franchises are just haunted, and the Bills are one of them, so I can't really blame them.
And going back to TJ Tynan, what a huge week for him. 5 points, launches him from 5th to 2nd. And welcome back to the top 10, Martin Ferk. It's been a while, but we are happy to see you here. So just to round out the top 5, we have Andrew Podorowski, TJ Tynan out of the Ontario Reign, Stefan Nason with Chicago. He falls back just a little bit, but not too far into number 3. Martin Ferk is number 4, and Michael Mersch out of Rochester, number 5. Okay, now we're going to look to the top skaters in terms of goals. Chicago still has a grip on those top 2 spots, but watch out. Martin Ferk is back with a big 4-goal week. I mean, of course, Rocco Grimaldi also reappearing into the top 10 here too. I mean, in fact, we have a lot of new names in this list this week.
I like how close it is too.
Rocco Grimaldi getting up there with only 24 games played, kind of like Jack Quinn. Yeah, I mean, well, whereas Quinn's being, kind of yo-yoed up between Buffalo and Rochester. If Rocco stays in Milwaukee, I think you'll see him race up to the top of that leaderboard in no time.
I mean, there's just a lot of the same teams here. I mean, of course, you got Podorowski and Nason from Chicago, 1-2. Ferk representing the entire Western Conference in that number 3 spot. Then you have Jeremy's Rochester Americans. Got Mersch and Quinn at 4 and 5. So, yeah. And then we talked about him before, but Pavel Dorofeyev from the Silver Knights peeking in at number 10. Okay, let's look at the rookies. Okay, yeah. So Groundhog Day here. Jack Quinn, Jacob Pelletier out of Stockton, and Tucson's Macias Michelli having the top 3 spots in the list. 4-point week gives JJ Peterka the edge over friend of the podcast, Jonathan Berggren.
It's going to not be Groundhog Day soon because Jack Quinn can't score points when Jack Quinn is hurt for 4 to 6 weeks because a certain team that's located in New York State decided that he needed to play in the NHL.
I forgot it was at 4 to 6 weeks. Oh no.
Yep. So get ready to watch Jacob Pelletier take his 4'9" self, or 5'9".
Wow, I thought that was just fade.
Sometimes you say what you mean, folks.
Oh no.
Up to the lead and man, I know nothing but pain.
Why does Buffalo have anything nice in either sport?
2 tragedies in Buffalo.
Oh no. Oh no.
This one might be worse.
Depends who you talk to. If you talk to Jeremy, this one's definitely worse.
No, I also wanted the Bengals to play the Bills, so I was also kind of sad about that one, but I digress.
That would have been great. Just saying. All right. rookie goals. I can't feel bad for saying this now, but when you have a lead, sometimes all you need is just one goal to keep it. Jack Quinn proving that once again. But Scott Reedy is right there, just one goal behind at 17. Reedy out of San Jose Barracuda. And of course, we were talking about Jacob Pelletier, Lucas Reichel right there with Pelletier. And then Alexander Holtz out of Utica is in that 5th spot. Goalie stats. It is 100% the exact same 5 guys as it was last week. Makaniemi, Wolf, Lyon, Decord, and Gristnick. Same order, same guys. So, yeah, we don't need to spend a whole lot of time there. All right, guys. Well, are you ready to talk about the quest for the Holy Grail? The standing races. Before we move on, does anybody need our 30 seconds of Zen? Or are we good?
No, I think that ship has sailed.
I haven't said anything in a while, so everything should be okay.
Everything's
on
good.
the viewership side, yeah.
Okay, good. Well, if not, they just got a little bit of time to collect themselves. All right, guys, we're going to go through this. Atlantic Division. Providence is still reigning supreme, but should we be concerned here? The once mighty Thunderbirds have fallen down to 3rd in the division. The Hershey Bears are 4th. What's going on in the Atlantic?
Chaos, just how I like it.
And like, can we talk about the battle for first place in the Atlantic Division, where it was the Thunderbirds for so long, and nobody ever thought that, you know, it would even become close for a while. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, Hartford is kind of good again. Yeah, sure, great. Let's just put them up there. And then Providence like, hold my beer. Watch this. And yeah, that's where we're at today.
I'm just waiting for the end of the season when Charlotte ends up in 1st.
Hershey doesn't make the playoffs.
Don't no. See now you just jinxed it. Now they're gonna make a run. Now they're gonna make a run.
Oh no! I mean, it's not like they're doing horrible. They're still 5-3-1-1 in their last 10. Hershey. It's just whenever you have Providence that goes 6-4-0-0 in the last 10, that kind of helps them out just a little bit. All right, now to move on to the North. Literally nothing to see here, folks. Keep moving on. The North is holding steady, literally just like the goalie race. North is the exact same. Utica, Rochester, Toronto, Laval, Syracuse, Cleveland, Belleville.
I wouldn't count out that bottom 3 race, because that is a tight race. The records are pretty well all the same. So, yeah, they're all pretty well sitting at even. I wouldn't sit them out yet.
Yep,
Something we pointed out in our group chat today, 8 regulation wins for the Cleveland Monsters.
Guys, I don't want to talk about it.
We don't have to. And then Belleville's got 12. It's like, wait, what's going on? And to your same logic, the goal differential is it's a thing. It's definitely. No, you don't want to talk about it anymore? Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm reserving this for a therapist. But I mean, if we're going to talk about that, Cleveland's not as, or is Cleveland as bad as Syracuse or not? I can't do quick math in my head.
One more. They have one more in the negative. So Cleveland is like 1 behind as we record. So Cleveland does have a pretty harsh goal differential going on.
I need to pray to the gods that Daniil Tarasov gets healthy very soon and comes back to Cleveland. Please, hockey gods. You answered Mark Letestu and Trent Vogelhuber's request for a good outing this past Saturday. Do me a solid, okay? Thank you. All right. So we're going to hop on over to the Central Division, and Central is the same as the North. They're in the exact same.
Yeah.
Same places, nothing to see.
I think other than maybe Milwaukee jumping up into that playoff race there, I don't know how much more movement you're going to see out of this division until the end of the season. It kind of feels like these teams are what they are, and this is kind of the perfect reflection of that.
You wait.
So, just to recap, Chicago, Manitoba, Grand Rapids, Rockford, Iowa, Milwaukee, and Texas. All right, guys. Pacific Division. A bit of jostling once again in the center of the division here. This is a division that I feel, where Andrew said that the Central is going to just kind of stay the same. I think we're going to see a lot of movement in the Pacific, but that number 1 and 2 spot are kind of held firmly by Stockton and Ontario. Then you have, San Jose and Tucson are going to kind of be flip-flopping down at the bottom, but everyone in between, it's just going to be a lot of movement.
Tucson on a solid 5-game regulation losing streak that's seeing them plummet to the bottom, but not quite bottom enough to get to San Jose yet. So once again, I just want to have a quick shout out. Colorado Eagles are rolling right now, up to number 3 in the Pacifics, which is kind of like being number 1 if you just include the top 2 teams that have been there all season. So good on you, Eagles.
Is there something to be said as well about how many games they've played outside of their division? They play a lot of Central Division games, and I don't know if that kind of has a full kind of effect because they're getting points from the outside and bringing them in, but smart tactic.
Yeah, I think that just goes to show the kind of quality hockey going on out there because they've had Iowa and Milwaukee come into town and just get waxed. I don't know if it's an altitude thing or what, but they were not ready to play, and the Eagles made them pay.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and move on to our games of the week. Now that you know where everyone stands, we'll tell you what games to watch. So we're just going to go. Andrew, Jeremy, Zach, Atlantic Division. Who do you have?
I got Friday's game going with Providence going in the Hartford, Bruins at Wolfpack. And, I mean, I'm not sure how you don't pick the number 1 versus number 2 matchup anytime you can. That's mine for this week.
Well, I'll tell you how you can do it. You can do it because Springfield has fallen from the graces of first place, like we mentioned, and they've fallen pretty hard down to the third. And Lehigh Valley, maybe you've heard of them on this show specifically. They're sitting in a playoff spot as we record right now, and so let's check out that one. It should be interesting, and that's where I'll go.
And I mean, Andrew kind of touched on it, but it's hard to justify how much of an important game Providence and Hartford kind of have because that first place spot, like we said, has been just so highly contested in the Atlantic. So when we see Hartford, Providence, and Springfield, anytime that any of them kind of clash together, it's an opportunity for a team not to get points on a weekend.
So we're going to stop the presses here real quick. We're recording on Tuesday, okay? And we just did our request for the Holy Grail and talked about how Providence was number 1. Just like that, they just lost to Utica 4-0. Providence is now number 4 in the Atlantic Division. What? 1 loss. They moved from 1 to 4.
That's the kind of chaos I want to see.
So we're just going to update this here real quick. The Atlantic Division is now Hartford, Springfield, Hershey, Providence, Charlotte, Lehigh Valley, Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, Bridgeport.
Yeah.
So that's another way that you cannot pick 1 versus 2, Andrew. It's fine.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess I got a little bit of revisionist history I got to work on there.
Well, once again, it's important for me to justify how much of an important game these games are because it means 1 or 4.
So, yeah, sorry to kind of spoil that pick there, but you never know. By Friday, they could be back up to number 1. You never know. So, anyway, moving on to the North Division, and don't worry, Utica was already at the top, so there's no movement there. So, let me know which games you'll be watching.
I got Saturday's game. We got Utica going into Rochester, and I'm just not sure how you don't pick the 1 versus 2 matchup anytime you can.
So I'll tell you how. So So Utica and Cleveland matchup on Sunday, and both teams are going to be coming into their 3rd and 3. And so it's just going to be one hellacious weekend for both of those teams. And Deana is telling you all how she feels about that. And so I just got to watch it because it feels like it's going to be chaos. It feels like it's going to be really, really good or really, really bad hockey. And I live for that dichotomy.
Again, massive implications are going to be again this weekend when Syracuse and Belleville. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but the bottom 3 in the standings are very tightly contested. And if it wasn't for such a bad goal differential for Cleveland, I think that things wouldn't be as close. But Cleveland's making it interesting and making everybody else interesting. So by that logic, I'll go with Syracuse and Belleville.
The only good thing about Cleveland's 3 and 3 is at least this time they'll be at home, so they don't have to travel. Speaking of travel, let's jot on over to the Central Division.
I got Friday's game, Grand Rapids going into Chicago, take on the Wolves. Yeah, it might be a little bit of beat bias. I cover both teams. Oh, well. But Grand Rapids is starting to get healthy. They're starting to get their depth back, and they added NHL vets Justin Applicator and Jamel Smith to the lineup. They've lost their last 6 games in Chicago this season, so, hey, maybe the Griffins will be fired up to finally get their first win against the Wolves. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, of course, a good one there. No beat bias from you, but I think a cross-divisional shout-out for our friend Michael, who's not with us today, but Manitoba and Abbotsford, again. Abbotsford has won 3 going into that game. Manitoba, again. Give Andrew credit where it's due. He does mention Manitoba here on the show, but we probably don't talk about him nearly as much as we should, and this is going to be really good hockey.
And I'm looking at Laval and Texas, where both teams really need the outside points. Laval has kind of been struggling in the North Division and just can't seem to light that fire. They kind of have some players back now that they don't look like an ECHL team anymore. And Texas, well, they're Texas. So you never know.
And last but certainly not least, the Pacific.
Yeah, I got Saturday's game. We got the Ontario Reign going into Stockton to take on the Heat. And, I'm not sure how you don't pick the 1 versus 2 matchup anytime you can.
Well, I'll tell you how you don't pick the 1 versus 2 matchup anytime you can. You go with the 3-4 matchup, and that's Colorado and Henderson. And it's funny, I think at the beginning of the season, talking about first episode gaffes, I think I said that that these 2 teams are going to be interesting to watch because they just had a history of not being great in the last few years. And here they are, 3 and 4. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch these 2 teams. It's down in Henderson. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch them. We've talked about that arena how many times and how it's affected that team. So it'll be fun to watch that one.
And for me, I'm boycotting the Pacific Division. I won't be watching any games because none of them start 5 past the hour. I only watch games that start 5 past the hour from here on out. But any game with Colorado and Henderson's good.
I like it. A man sticking to his convictions. I like it.
So I'm not sure if y'all catch. Well, if you felt like your audio file might have been skipping there a little bit, it actually wasn't. So it's just Andrew being Andrew, and I'm sorry that Utica and Providence had to spoil that nice little run there for you.
Yeah, that was a tough one. I didn't realize that it was that tightly contested in the Atlantic, where one loss and then you're dropping that far. So hey, Charlotte, your number 1 spot is they're keeping it warm for you up there. You just gotta take it.
All right, and we're up to the bonus round. And Jeremy, I believe you won last week after you added $1 year onto Michael's guess and completely broke his heart.
After it was all the hard work.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
He did do all the hard work.
Yeah, because he knew exactly what season it was. He just got the year wrong. Like he was like, "Oh yeah, this season where this happened and this happened and this happened, and I ate this for breakfast." And I'm like, "Yeah, that one +1." And here I am.
Although I love how you framed it. I'm just going to add 1 because I'm trash, and then you win.
I'm not wrong. Like that was a pretty trash thing to do, but so in lieu of, I really think that maybe I need to throw my hat in the ring to be Coachella Valley Beat, because I throw them a little bit of a bone every single time they do anything, whether that be when the team was announced and the bonus round was about Coachella, the music festival. This one we're going to talk about some jerseys, and so I have found a list of a ranking, if you will, by courtesy of Holtby's blog. Now, this is a 5-year-old article. Could not find any sooner than that. But it is a ranking of AHL jerseys. And I want you all, in order, to say your top 3 AHL jerseys.
From 5 years ago?
Just do it from now. We'll just have fun. To be fair, they are current jerseys still, so like it works out.
So there's no alternates, nothing like that. Just straight up.
Just give me the team and I'll give it to you. So if you get whoever gets the most out of the 3 is going to be this week's winner on the bonus round. And you can send it. We've discovered the chat feature on the Holy GrAHL on our streaming platform. So y'all can send me a little message. No, then you all can see each other's answers. Never mind. I'm wrong. I'm trying to think of the best way to do this. On our system, you all can just say them out loud.
Yeah. Oh, goodness.
Oh.
We're all just kind of like, okay. I would have to say the Checkers, the Admirals, and I'm deciding on my third one. Y'all can pick. I'll come back.
I'll say Hershey, and I'll say Chicago, and I'm gonna say Rockford.
I'm gonna go with Laval, Colorado, and Toronto.
I'm going to throw. Oh, goodness. Providence.
All right. So out of all the teams that were named, only one of them finds their way into the top 3 of AHL jerseys. And that is owned by none other than the Milwaukee Admiral. So, Deana, you're walking away this week's winner. Just for kicks and gigs, which jersey do you all think was rated the worst on this list?
Are they still in action?
I'm going to say yes. I do believe so.
So worst.
Bridgeport.
Belleville.
Yeah,
No, Lehigh Valley. Lehigh Valley.
Yeah, Belleville.
Well, Deana thought they might be among the best. The Providence Bruins.
Oh, no.
Oh, really?
What?
Hey, I mean, listen.
I need to see what their jerseys looked like 5 years ago, though.
A totally subjective opinion, right? Like, let's be honest. But I thought that could be a fun little way to wrap up the show. We started with Jersey Talk. We can end with Jersey Talk.
They had the alternates then, I think. The Bruins, what was like the Fenway Classic that the Bruins had, and then the baby Bruins had that little P thing.
Yeah, the
Winter.
It's not super bright yellow, but it pops for sure.
Yeah, it's pretty yellow. It was the mostly yellow jersey with the P in the middle. Again, a purely subjective post, but hey.
So who put together that list?
I just want to talk.
Yeah, great question.
I'm just.
It's actually on the Bakersfield Condors website. And
Oh,
it is it's called Holt's Blog, Best AHL Jerseys. Again, it's 5 to 6 years old.
Ryan Holt. I actually name dropped him earlier on in the episode. Nice way to tie it all together, Jeremy.
Yeah, I did that so on purpose. I did that so intentionally. I'm so glad that you picked up on it.
All right. Well, that's going to be it for the Holy Grail this week. If you like us, please like, subscribe, share, rate this podcast 5 stars, guys, and tell all your friends. If you really like us or just want to talk to us a little bit, be sure to give us all a follow on Twitter, and be sure to check out all of Field Pass Hockey's other podcasts. We have Inside the SPHL with James Hayes. If you want to get to know some of these players in the SPHL, listen to his podcast. He has a new player on, it seems like, every week. It's great content. We have the 3 Periods podcast with Matthew Harding and Matt Will. Matt Will, not Math. I promise I know how to word. We'll bring you the 3 hottest topics in the ECHL every single week. And then we have 2 team-focused podcasts here. We have Syracuse Speaks with Alexander Ackerman, which is a Syracuse Crunch-centric podcast that focuses on maintaining a balanced perspective in the ever-shifting world of minor league hockey. And then we have a New Look Monsters Musings podcast with Jay Forster and myself, where we cover all of the ins, outs, ups, and downs, and the fun, I guess, of what it means to be a Cleveland Monster. So on behalf of all of my fellow co-hosts here at the Holy GrAHL podcast, and thank you once again to our special guest, Tyler Weber, who covers the Texas Stars for us. We hope that all of you have an amazing week, and we will see you next Thursday. Bye.
This has been the Holy GrAHL podcast. Have a question or a topic suggestion? Hit us up on Twitter or drop us an email. For the latest news across the American Hockey League and the rest of minor league hockey, download the Field Pass Hockey app, now available in the Apple and Android app stores.